Okay, so this is a video by another creator named Nancy Drew. Nancy Drew. I'm sorry. I'm gonna link it. I'm gonna put the page here. But he's talking about the motive of John. We've been studying John a little bit, trying to dig a little bit more into John. We watched this came from watching forensic pathologist Dr. Wecht and Cyril Wecht, and he suggested that John may have been the cause of JonBenet's unaliving. And so, following that narrative, we've been watching some more interviews with John by himself, and some of the more recent ones, later ones, with John, Dr. Phil on 60 Minutes, just kind of trying to get an idea of John. And so, um, this is sort of walking us through sort of the motives of John here. So I want to take a look at this.
Episode 30, JonBenet Case, John Ramsey's Motive. Viewer discretion is advised because of some of the vocabulary used in this video, describing body parts and things of a nature in use. There are no graphic photographs in the video. And anytime I say that would be sex assault. In this video, I contend that John Ramsey's motive was that he was a child molester, and he didn't want to kill JonBenet, but he did because he had to avoid being caught. So the outline for this video is, first,
Was JonBenet, and we know that kids are smart, to avoid being caught. Was JonBenet smart enough at 6 years old to start opening up her mouth and saying, daddy did this, daddy did that? And again, we still don't know what he did to do it.
Second, that JonBenet was bleeding. And then third, the murder. Okay, here's a copy of the first page of the autopsy report, and it's listing injuries to the body. Roman numeral 1, ligature. 2, the skull and brain injuries. 3, an abrasion of the right cheek. And 6, an abrasion and vascular congestion of the mucosa. Okay, this portion of the autopsy is stating that she was prior to being murdered. And we're going to look at other parts of the autopsy that talk about past injuries also. And also more detail about this. Okay, here you can see that there was dry blood found on JonBenet's areas. And if you pause the video, you can see all the different areas.
Dried blood on JonBenet's body, on the anterior aspect of the perineum, along the edges of the closure of the labia majora is a small amount of dry blood, similar small amount of dry blood. And the seminal fluid is present on the skin. Okay. Dried blood on the inside of the walls. Okay. So I guess what I'm reading here is this is more, bro, I'm not about to sit here and read this about no 6-year-old, bro.
And keep in mind that the autopsy, so that's mentioned in or listed in the autopsy report. Now this is from the affidavit for a search warrant, and it states that the pathologist believed that she was. In this part of the affidavit, it shows that there was a thin layer of blood on her thighs.
What is happening? makes me sick. It just makes me sick to my stomach.
Maybe I spoke too soon. Here's when they found out that the substance was a smear of blood on her thighs. Here it talks about samples of the red stains.
This just makes me kind of sick to my stomach, man.
Were sent off to the lab to be tested. And here you can see the evidence paper bag and the date, and it says, it's hard to read, but it says red stains. And so that was sent to be tested. And then here on the long johns, it has the little A to indicate something. The pathologist, Dr. Meyer, stated to Detective Arndt that his opinion is that the evidence observed is consistent with the area having been wiped by a cloth. So I contend that JonBenet, she started bleeding, and John was in a predicament because he couldn't go to Patsy or take her to the doctor because there's no way to explain this injury. So he decided to kill. And so the rest of this video is about the cover-up.
If this were the case, and you felt like this is what you needed to do, you know, what did you do that was so bad that you felt like you couldn't reverse it? Now, I know you don't want to go to jail. Like, we're assuming that this is true. I know you don't want to go to jail. You don't want to go to prison. But you had to unalive the girl? You know what I mean? Like, because maybe JonBenet was intelligent enough. And this is what is, this is what is helping me understand a little bit more about the kind of young lady that, a little girl, however you want to phrase it, that JonBenet was. Was she talkative? Was she inquisitive? Was she just like open with, Mom, this and that, last night, Burke or Daddy or this or that, and it's funny when she's being cute, that's when it's funny, but it becomes unfunny when she's being too truthful. Mom, I wonder then if there was an incident at some point in time earlier where, and there began to be a conversation between John and Patsy, where if JonBenet may have slipped up and said something, and Patsy would have been like, what? Why would you say that? And John had to cover it up. But then John is down there and he's like, yo, you can't tell your mom. You can't tell your mom. And maybe he doesn't trust that JonBenet can keep it under wraps. This is just, okay. JonBenet can't keep it under wraps. And then he just does what he feels he needs to do. And then maybe there were, arguments between John and Patsy about this. And maybe they went upstairs after that incident. And Patsy said to John, what was JonBenet talking about? Why would she say that? And then John was like, I don't know. And maybe it's because it would be such a stunned reaction that John couldn't hide it, because it's so visceral in the moment that, it's going to hit you in the moment. Knee jerk, amygdala type stuff. That's going to be impulse. That's impulse all the way. You can't hide your reaction to that. Somebody hits you with an accusation like that in the moment. Number one, it's going to catch you off guard if it's a lie. But If it's true, in your soul, you're gonna know it's true. And it's gonna hit you to where you're like, yo, I gotta make up a lie. I gotta tell my daughter she's lying. I gotta spin it right here, right now, because my daughter's gonna withstand me, to my face. I don't know, guys. This is rough. So that conversation, to finish my thought, the conversation between Patsy is like, yo, what's this about? I want, and she kind of in no uncertain terms tells John, I don't want no funny business. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know why our daughter would say something. I might take it to a psychologist, and we'll talk about it. But if I get it up out of her, if we get the trauma out of her, I don't want to hear it again. Because if I hear it again, we might be on to something. That's crazy.
So the first thing that happened was John had to explain, where was JonBenet? She's missing. And so the simple explanation was she was kidnapped. And then he worked on writing this ransom note, and he came up with the angle of the foreign faction. And that's why JonBenet was found the way she was, with the garrote. A garrote is uncommon, not a normal thing in the United States. It gives itself the appearance of being of a foreign. Once you come to the conclusion that JonBenet, all the clues and facts make sense, and it all fits together perfectly.
And you see how I think you see how JonBenet is covered up. Sometimes when you go through a lot of murder mystery cases, when sometimes indicative of care for the individual, and first of all, we know that a lot of unalivings happen from somebody who was close to you. That's just what the cops will tell you. Number one. Number two, especially when they look at the crime scene and they look to see if anything is disheveled. A lot of times when it's not, and there are things that are undisturbed, and there is no evidence that there was evidence of a robbery or anything, then they start to look in the direction of this was somebody that the person knew to let them in the house. And so I think here, this is somebody that we can use that same line of logic to say this is somebody that if JonBenet were to be able to open the door for this for her killer, for the person who unalived her, then we would say that JonBenet knew them, because nothing is disturbed in that way. They snuck up on her, took her unaware, because they didn't have to. They know she's not on defense. So it's just kind of weird, bro. And the way she's covered up shows that there's some sort of care. I don't want to see her face.
If you see anything that doesn't, leave a comment. Tell me what doesn't make sense. Well, this ends this episode of Unsolved, and in the next episode, I will look at another theory that entails John Ramsey as the murderer.
Yeah, man, this is weird. Appreciate you watching. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Until next time, I'm gonna keep on looking at John, but until next time, take it easy.